Okay, here we go. Hi all, Gabor here. Today I want to discuss what Starfield is and what Starfield isn't. I want to be clear and relatively brief, show off the main game mechanics, and give a definitive conclusion and recommendation. I would also like to touch on some of the misinformation, clarify some ambiguity, and cut through the bullshit being put out there that is muddying the waters for potential players. There are a plethora of systems and mechanics and a lack of meaningful boundaries. Yes, there are boundaries on areas and in space, but unless you go looking for them, and I mean like really going looking for them, they'll never crop up. As with all games, you play the game as it is and not how you wish it was. And, judged on this, Starfield is an absolute slam dunk. Let me talk quickly about what Starfield is and what Starfield is not. Starfield is an FPS RPG, or you can play it in third person if that's your jam, with a focus on quests, crafting, shipbuilding, NPCs and companions, outposts, resource collection, and lots of combat. It's in the Bethesda style and incorporates a mixture of basic mechanics from Skyrim and Fallout, mostly the best from each. Starfield isn't Bethesda's No Man's Sky, a spaceship simulator, or a Star Citizen killer. It takes some parts of those games and mixes them into the Bethesda RPG formula, but in no way are they the focus. One of the most aggravating avenues people are using to snipe from the sidelines is to talk about bugs and say, "Oh no, here we go again with another BGS release debacle." These people are fucking idiots. Starfield is a rock solid release. Some of you might have performance issues. It happens in every ambitious game. Some of you might have a few crashes, and some will encounter bugs that do halt gameplay. Some, a small percentage. This is all super impressive given the scope and the complexity. I wholeheartedly recommend this game to fans of Bethesda RPGs, science fiction, and open world RPG games. I was going to say FPS there, but you can play it in third person and someone will definitely call me out. For everyone else who might have seen some negative press or be unsure how things work, I'm here to cut through the noise and the bullshit, show you what the game is, and prove my recommendation to you. Let me show you what the game is all about. Character creation. It's a character creator. You make a face, you sculpt your body a bit, and you select some starting skills and some optional traits. Pretty standard stuff for modern games. The combat. Combat is far more first-person shooter and far less number crunching. There are stealth mechanics, there are boost packs to jump around in once you unlock that skill, which is really quite cool, and there's a whole skill tree to traverse as well. There's no VATS, the whole pausing and targeting body parts like there was in Fallout 4, and there are just so many weapons. Basic types being the melee, ballistic, and laser, and they've created such a multitude of different models that there should surely be a combination for every playstyle. Ships and shipbuilding. The ships are modular and can be customized to be almost whatever you want. There are two types of editing. There's a simple version that lets you swap one specific component like a shield or an engine for another one. And then there's a complex builder that lets you build a vessel from scratch and place parts wherever you want really, including all of the interior modules. The builder can be a bit clunky at times, though I'd expect Bethesda will smooth this out and models will come along and extend and improve it in many different ways. Ship combat. Very basic, arcadey space combat. You can have up to 3 weapons which are put into weapon groups. You can control the power levels between these groups as well as between the engines, the shields and the grav drive. So they all share one common energy pool and you allocate things out as you feel is necessary. There is an optimal speed for turning and maneuvering. Energy weapons work best to drop shields while the ballistic weapons work best to take out the hull and blow a ship up. You can also unlock a skill to target the ship components on the enemy ships. Ships can then be disabled and boarded and captured. Researching, crafting, modding and resources. Crafting and modding revolves around weapons, armor, food, and medical items. First, you research new areas under the various headings using a research workbench, basically. And this includes outpost parts as well. And then you use workbenches to actually mod the items or make the things. All of the above consumes resources which are collected on the surface, purchased, crafted, or looted. While researching, you have a mechanic called overflow, which basically means putting more of one material into a project than is actually needed, and then it overflows and also fills some of the requirements for a completely different material. Inventory. The inventory is perfectly serviceable and mirrors that used by other Bethesda games. You have a long, sortable list which is broken down into categories like weapons or aid or armor or whatever, and then an all option down the bottom that will show every single thing. You can compare items with what you already have equipped and is otherwise a kind of a useful but very basic inventory. I expect to be one of the first things tackled by modders and installed by the player base. Skills. The skill tree is large and contains a lot of cool things to pursue. Each time you level up, you get a point and you spend it on a new skill. So far, so normal. There are multiple skill trees for things like social, combat, and science, among other things, and each has its own multiple bands, each higher band and its skills being unlocked by selecting a certain amount of skills in the band above. Again, nothing new, groundbreaking. Each skill can have its own tiers, or I think all of them have their own tiers, and each tier of a skill after the first has a requirement to be fulfilled before you can select it. For example, Tier 2 stealth cannot be selected until you perform 10 stealth attacks, and of course you have a free skill point to spend. How the weapons and armor work. Each has multiple ratings for defense against various attack types, and each provides protection from various environmental factors. They have various rarity levels as well, like rare, epic, legendary, and the uncommon or rare gear all come out with like either one or more unique properties on top of what you can then mod into them later from a workbench. You can't remove the mods from equipment and then put it onto other equipment though, so be aware. NPCs and companions. The dialogue you choose from is more verbose like Skyrim and less open to interpretation like Fallout 4 was. There is a simple persuasion minigame that has its associated skill under the social tree. The companions can be allocated to your ship or outpost to add bonuses to things. One of your companions can accompany you on a mission for assistance, for witty dialogue or nagging, or to act as a pack mule, as in you can just give them a whole bunch of crap to carry around for you. They're absolutely no good for stealth and will get into combat all the time. Quests. Not really much to say here. The quests are fun and varied. I don't really want to tell you anything about it because I don't want to chuck any spoilers in. There is a mission board to take randomly generated missions, and the quest manager works, quite well. I always knew where to go next. Map. Okay, the galaxy map and the system maps are fine. Almost good. No problem with them. I like that I can fast travel to most places directly, assuming I'm not encumbered. It's a big galaxy with lots of things to do, and only the immersion jockeys really want to have to take off, land, and traverse the landscape over and over. If there's one thing Star Citizen taught me, is that too much immersion is a chore and a barrier to fun. Okay, let's talk about the surface map. The surface map, including maps of built-up areas like big cities, are very basic. They are not acceptable. It's the only part of the game that I look at and think, I needed to put a lot more work into this. I kind of understand the planet maps, but the maps of the major built-up areas in the big cities, they really need to be better. Outposts. Outpost building is fun. Easier than Fallout 4's building mechanics, and you can go to town building and populating a cool home base inside and out. Weirdly, on PC, the interface mechanics differ from the ship building enough that it's obvious they all worked on different teams who forgot to exchange notes. Again, I see this as a major area for modders to go crazy with. You can also build multiple outposts from, big bases that you want to live in and have all your guys in, to little mining rigs. Exploration. Surface exploration consists of a few key areas here. First, there is scanning, surveying the local flora and fauna if there is some, as well as searching out the resources. You can also discover and scan unique areas and organisms on that planet or moon. Next up, there's hand mining and resource gathering. Plants and dead fauna give you materials, rocks can be mined, and things like vents or pools can be collected from. Lastly, there are points of interest or POIs. Much like other Bethesda games, you'll see new POIs on the map and the compass that you can just wander off and check out. It might be a factory, a base, a ship, a cave, a unique area, like all sorts of things. And as you explore them, you're sort of building up your own unique area. So how empty are the planets? Are they all barren rocks? No, they're not. There's a mix of barren, inhospitable, and hospitable planets with life. It's far too easy to bounce from one POI to the next and just forget about doing anything else in the game. Is there a proper day and night cycle down on these planets? Yes, there sure is. The game has time systems, universal time and local time. Using local time, you can watch the sun rise and fall. There are also dynamic weather systems. You can pass time by sitting down in a chair or sleeping in a bed. Lockpicking. This is a new minigame that is based around filling in the notches on rings using keys that have various configurations of notch filling bits. The trick is to work out which key or keys will fill the outer ring but also leave you with enough compatible keys to fill the inner ring. It's intuitive once you work it all out and fast enough that it doesn't overstay its welcome. Looting. The looting is extensive and the UI tells you if items are used for crafting or aid or whatever, so you shouldn't end up with piles of junk accidentally. Encumbrance is still a thing though, and you can level up a skill and obviously mod up armor to give you more space. There are also performance enhancing consumables that temporarily increase your carrying capacity. You can't fast travel if you're over encumbered. One big difference is that stripping a corpse of its armor does not reflect on its model, so even when you take their spacesuit, they'll still be left wearing a spacesuit. Hopefully this is changed in the future or modded to work like other BSG games. The compass. The compass is initially a little confusing, but with practice it actually works really well. It shows your stamina, or O2, and overexertion, or CO2. Building up too much CO2 can give you lung damage, so not something you really want to do. You're in the middle of the little planet image, and the sun passes over from left to right. When the terminator, which is the line between night and day sections, reaches the middle of the image, again that's where you are in the middle, then it's either going to be dawn or dusk. The compass part has a little squared off arrow for planetary north, and a little icon if you place the marker on the map. Nearby POIs also show up. That's a fairly succinct summary of the systems and mechanics, and hopefully helps answer any questions you might have about how the game functions. Now, let's move on to the post-early access launch noise. I saw a particularly brain-dead headline the other day about it being a mile wide but an inch deep, and I can't work out if the author was trolling, lazy, or stupid. Lump that in with imbeciles who complained about the title screen, or the idiot who went off on a rant because he couldn't land on a gas planet. Sure, mate. I'm personally annoyed that I can't land with the sun or set up my outpost on a black hole. What a dickhead. This kind of sets the tone for 25% of the distractions, and I really don't think I need to cover it that much further. There's a vocal minority out there who are determined from the outset to tank the Metacritic score and to attack the game. These people can be identified pretty easily because they're not talking about the actual game. They're just picking a single topic and attacking it with great might and furious anger. Often the topic isn't even relevant, or they're just, talking absolute bollocks. There's a second class of distraction at the moment. Benign intentions, and they can be further divided into two camps: legitimate concerns that only impact a small number of players, or people deliberately breaking a game or doing things that weren't intended to be done. And then these are being parroted by various media outlets and being blown out of proportion in some instances. Accessibility issues are in the first camp, and these are not bullshit. Bethesda do need to address some basic quality of life stuff for people who experience things like motion sickness, and this includes options to turn off head bob and tinker with the field of view. In the second camp are people who are just having fun and doing stuff like finding the edge of the areas on the planets or trying to fly from space to a planet's surface. These are amusing videos, but for people tossing up whether they should even play the game, they can be potentially off-putting. In a lot of the videos, it is stated that the game was never intended for these things to be possible. And in most of the articles I've read that cover the videos, they mention it in passing also, but I'd like to bet the majority of potential players are only reading the headlines. There's a lot of headlines out there in news feeds and a lot of dramatic sounding video titles to give the overall impression that Starfield is a broken, half-baked, hollow gourd of a game, which is absolutely not the case. Here's my conclusion. If you like what you've seen here, then play the game. If you like Bethesda RPGs, then play the game. Don't hesitate to read or watch unbiased reviews from reputable sources. Try to stay away from the mountains of YouTube videos shouting about limitations or promising to handle secrets, tricks, or workarounds, and just jump into the game for now. If any of this leaves you cold or uncertain, I can only suggest subscribing to the Microsoft Game Pass for a month and just trying it out for yourself. There's no doubting that Starfield isn't for everyone, and I won't stand here and pretend it's the game to end all games. And that's a good thing. The world is full of great games, all different types of games, and there's all different types of tastes, and so many other fantastic games have come out in the last few weeks, so if you'd rather play one of these, that's awesome. Don't be turned off at Starfield though, because of the nebulous cloud of confusing and conflicting information out there from some of the early access players. Hopefully this mostly factual look at the game will help someone, and if it did, please let me know in the comments, and hey, chuck me a like. If you think I'm wrong or feel personally attacked by anything I've said, also dump a comment below. Until next time, be excellent to one another. Gavor out.